All right, hi everybody. We're back for our pinch pot and we're ready to do the carving now. This pot is at the hard leather hard stage, which means that when I push on it, nothing happens. But if I push a fingernail into it, it will still like dent really easily, and furthermore can be smoothed over to disappear still. If it were bone dry, it would not be able to be smoothed over. Okay, so it's at the stage where, again, I can push on it and it barely flexes, if at all. And if I flexed it too much at this stage, it would want to crack. All right, so I'm thinking about what design I want to put on the surface. And for this assignment, we're going to be thinking about balance. So the idea of having an equal weight divided around the piece. And you could choose to have a symmetrical balance, which would be the same on both sides, or an asymmetrical balance, which would mean like that there was a sense of balance even though the parts were different sizes. And I want you to execute that using a variety of shapes and lines. So shapes can be organic, meaning having curving natural edges, or they can be geometric, meaning having hard, firm, or straight edges like triangles, rectangles, etc. Organic shapes would be things like you would think of like a gourd or kind of amorphous shapes. You can go in any direction that you want. And then I also want you to think about line, specifically the quality of line that you're able to get. So that would be the difference between like a really smooth, thick line versus, you know, a thin, jagged line. Think about what type of line you want your shapes to have on their edges. So I'm going to show you guys a trick that has helped me to create designs that are symmetrically balanced on the piece radially, meaning coming from the top. So I'm going to start by, I could start on the top or the bottom actually. I was just thinking which one would be better. So take anything that reaches across the entire width of your piece. I'm going to get the angle on this right. All right, so take anything that can fit across the entire top and look down at it and make a little mark for yourself. So you can see that this now has a mark here and here. So I'm going to think of this like a pizza. So I'm going to make a mark at the X, and then I'm going to turn it and I'm going to split the difference there again, and I'm going to make a mark here and here. And then I'm going to do it one last time and make a mark here and here. And then what I can do with these little lines that I've made, which are even or just about even, is I can now follow them down the side of the pot. So I can actually take any kind of straight edge and I can hold it for myself. And I'm gonna grab my needle tool and I can trace that line very lightly down to the bottom. See, I just made a mistake there, not on purpose. Sometimes you just make a mistake when you're trying to film yourself. And I can just sponge that line out. Okay, so I'm gonna try that again, but I'm gonna focus a little bit better. So I'm gonna trace that line. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna actually just use the tool. So I'm gonna have that line go down. That worked a little bit better for me. So I've got my first line, and everywhere that I've got a spot, I'm just gonna trace a line down in that fashion. And if you mess one up, just do what I did before, where I erase the line with the sponge. And make sure that they stay pretty straight for you. If they start getting crooked, your design's gonna get crooked as well. All right, so I'm checking this line situation. Most of them look pretty good to me. Some of them are a little bit sparse, but it'll still work. All right, so now I'm gonna get started on my carving design. So I've got this radial design going here. And inside each little spot, I'm either gonna make horizontal marks, I've decided, or vertical marks, and I'm gonna alternate them. So for this one, I would start with it like upside down. It's gonna be easier for you to control it. So I'm gonna carve. So I've got 6 little marks that fit in there, and then I'm just gonna expand from there, trying not to go too deep. But this is my vertical mark making area. So the easiest way to do this for me will actually definitely be put something on my lap. So I'm gonna grab an apron and I'm gonna set that on my lap, and I'll be able to carve here. Because if I try to do that directly on my table, I have the sense that mistakes will be made. And I'm just gonna keep vibing with that. And these are getting, ooh, there's a spider I have to kill. All right, coming back to it. So I'll just carve the same way all the way up. And I've let these marks get kind of a little bit rough on the way up, and I kind of like it. All right, so those are the marks that I've chosen to make there. I'm looking at this and I think it might be nice actually to have the contrast of a plain area in between. So I'm gonna map this out for myself. So if I wanted to do every other one, I do, so you have to kind of count, you have to think about it before you measure twice, cut once is the expression that I learned. So I would do this area, I'm like just marking them with a fingernail, and then this area, and then I leave the rest blank. So I think I'll go with that. And I'm thinking about how my edges look here now, and I'm not loving like the transition between the line and the marks. So I think I might actually come back in and make it so that there's no line showing and it's just my like carved marks that show, because I like that consistency. All right, so this is my second area. And I'm thinking about doing those edges the same way. You guys can see that, you know, because of how dry this is, it's responding a certain way to the tool. If it were drier, it would come off like chalk and it would not work very well. Okay, so I've got 2 done now. And I'm gonna keep going, but I think you probably can understand from now what I mean. You can also use not this carving tool, but instead, if I just wanted to make lines, I could take my needle tool, press it in, and pull it up. If you try to use the needle tool so that it's perpendicular to the surface, and if I do this and drag, I'll just show you. You see all those little crumbs that pop up? You don't want that. So you would need to use your sponge to get rid of some of that. And then instead of using it at this angle and dragging, I want you to put it parallel or as close to parallel as you can get and drag. And you'll notice there that there are no crumbs. And that's the difference between doing it vertically versus doing it parallel to the surface. So again, anytime that you make a mistake, just use the various tools that you have at your disposal to try to erase what you did, and always finish it with the sponge. All right, happy carving everyone. And my next video will be about how to finish it off at the very end.